Hello students, today we will take up one of the most famous poems written by William Wordsworth, and the name of the poem is Lines Composed Above Tintern Abbey. As we all know, William Wordsworth is known as a nature poet. Why? Because he loved nature. He not only loved nature but he also worshipped it. This poem is interesting because it explains his theory of poetry, which is spontaneous overflow of powerful emotions, and these emotions recollected in tranquility. So, today we will take up the most famous poems written by Wordsworth. Lines composed above Tintern Abbey. Now, in this poem, you will see that the poet is revisiting the place after a gap of 5 years, and he says 5 years have passed, 5 summers with the length of 5 long winters. Means first time he visited the place and now he is visiting it after 5 years, and during this period he has attained maturity, and during these 5 years he has gone through great mental crisis. He says, and again I hear these waters rolling from their mountain springs. So he came here 5 years before, and again he has come to the same spot, and he can hear the waters of the spring which is rolling, the soft murmur of the water which is falling down from the mountains. Once again do I behold these steep and lofty cliffs. So near Tintern Abbey, the poet says that he can behold, means he can see steep and lofty cliffs, means the mountains, that on a wild secluded scene impress thoughts of more deep seclusion. The loneliness of the scene, it produces feeling of loneliness in the heart of the poet, and he says, and connect the landscape with the quiet of the sky. The landscape and the skyscape intermingle here and impress deep quiet. He says, the days come when I again repose. Repose means take rest. Again I am taking rest here under this dark sycamore. Sycamore is the name of a tree, and it appears to be dark because of the leaves which are dark green in color, and view these plots of cottage ground. View means see, and he sees the orchards which are in distance, that are near the cottages, and these orchard tufts. Tufts means they look like the tufts of feathers of ferns. Then he says, which at this season means it is the season of July, with their unripe fruits, the fruits are also green in color because they are unripe, are clad in one green hue. Hue means color. The trees as well as the fruits, they are green in color and lose themselves mid grooves and copses. lose themselves means as the fruits are green, the whole tree looks green and it is difficult to distinguish from the trees amongst the groves and copses means the bushes. Once again I see these hedgerows, hardly hedgerows. He can again see the hedges growing which are not properly trimmed. That is why he says he can hardly call it hedgerows. Little lines of sportive wood run wild. The trees, they run into a form which is wild like the forest. These pastoral farms means these lands green to the very door. Very door means they are green, the luxuriant greenery, and wreaths of smoke sent up in silence from among the trees. Then he says that he can also see wreaths of smoke. Wreaths means the circle of smoke, which suggests that there are some gypsies or hermits who are making food in the forest. So he says wreaths of smoke sent up. Sent up means rise up in silence from among the trees. He can see the circles of smoke with some uncertain notice as might seem of vagrant dwellers. Vagrant means the wandering people who live in the woods, or of some hermit's cave, or maybe the smoke is coming out from some hermit. Hermit means a saint who is living in his cave, whereby his fire the hermit sits alone, and it is supposed that the hermit is sitting all alone by his fire. These beauteous forms means these beautiful sights. The poet says, through a long absence have not been to me. Through a long absence of 5 years, these scenes were not before his eyes. But he has not forgotten them, as is a landscape to a blind man's eye. But off in lonely rooms and mid the din of towns and cities, he says, often when he was all alone in his room or amidst the noise, the bustle of the towns and cities, I have owed to them in hours of weariness sensations sweet. He says, even when he was all alone or he was amidst the noisy town and cities, in hours of weariness means when he was tired in account of atrocities or reign of terror, felt in the blood and felt along the heart. The memory of these scenes filled the heart with sensations. And which sensations? Sweets. He says, and passing even into my purer mind with tranquil restoration, the memory of the scenes restored the peace of mind. Feelings too of unremembered pleasure, and even he was restored with feelings which are formed by memories. And he says, such perhaps as have no slight or travel influence on that best portion of a good man's life. These feelings are not ordinary or petty ones. He says the impressions left up the beautiful scenes unconsciously produced a moral influence on his character. His little nameless, unremembered acts of kindness and of love. He says, and by these beautiful scenes, he was influenced and he did little nameless, unremembered deeds of kindness and of love. Nor less I trust to them I may have owed another gift. And he says he also derived, owed means he also derived one more gift, one more benefit from nature, and it is of a lofty nature, of aspect more sublime. These gifts which he derived are of more lofty nature. That blessed mood means that happy temper of mind in which the burden of the mystery means the burden, the weight of mystery, in which the heavy and weary weight of all this unintelligible world is lightened. Lightened means it is relieved. The mysteries of the universe, which was not understood, they are relieved now. That serene and blessed mood means the calm and quiet mood in which the affections gently lead us on, and these gently lead us further until the breath of this corporal frame. Corporal frame means the body, the physical body, and even the motion of our human blood means the close communion with nature awakens our spiritual sense and suspends for a time being our physical functions, in which the affections gently lead us on and until the breath of this corporal frame and even the motion of our human blood. Then he says, almost suspended, we are laid asleep in body and become a living soul. Means we feel that we are all spirit, while with an eye made quiet by the power of harmony and the deep power of joy, we see into the life of things. What does the poet mean by this line? He means that the rule of the world, the power of joy, we see into the life of things means we start understanding the inner meaning of things. We feel joy and the thought that some divine spirit rules the world, and this thought gives us the inner meaning of things. If this be but a vain belief, yet oh, how often darkness and amid the many shapes of joyless daylight. The poet says that even if nature exerts the influence and we feel but a vain belief, a false idea, yet how oft means how often in darkness and amid the many shapes, in those days when we could not find any joy in the bustle and excitement of city life, of joyless daylight, means those days when there was no joy, no cheerfulness, when the fretful stir stands for the busy excitement or the noise of the city life, when the fretful stir, unprofitable, and the fever of the world have hung upon the beating of my heart, means it has produced a stifling, a choking influence on the poet, have hung upon the beatings of my heart, the choking influence which has felt, the poet has felt. How often spirit means here imaginatively. How often, spirit, have I turned to thee? Means imaginatively the poet has sought relief in inspiration from the memory which he revived of these beautiful scenes. Now, in the next lines which are important, he says, O sylvan way, thou wanderer through the woods, how often has my spirit turned to thee? So the poet is addressing, he is addressing the way, the river way, and he is saying that how often I have turned to thee, I have come to thee, to you for relief. Thou wanderer through the woods, the sylvan way, who is supposed to be a wanderer, a traveler through the forest. How often has my spirit turned to thee? To thee means to you for relief. We will do the next part of the poem in our next video.